My dad let his dealer use our house as a substance stash while my 6-year-old brother lived there. When he accidentally consumed the substances, I gathered evidence and exposed everyone. 2 years later, Dad wants forgiveness. I was 14 when I learned how to lie. You see, my dad was a hardcore substance addict. He popped opioids like it was a Fruity Pebbles cereal. The first time my baby brother Jake almost found Dad's stash, I thought my heart would explode. Dad's med bottles were right there behind the sock divider. I grabbed Jake and swung him around like we were playing airplane until he forgot what he was doing. That's when I learned how to lie to protect my brother from our dad. By the time I was 17, I'd gotten really good at it. Good enough that my boyfriend Tyler believed me when I said the bruises on Dad's arms were from work. Tyler had his own problems with bruises, so he didn't push. His parents were mean drunks and he practically lived at our house. This was convenient for both me and Jake, now 6, who absolutely loved him. We were sitting on my roof looking at the stars when he grabbed my hand. "Promise me we won't end up like them?" he asked, voice shaking. I squeezed his hand back. "Never. The thing about promises is they're easy to make when you don't know what's coming." Tyler helped with everything. When Dad passed out on the couch, Tyler carried him to bed. When Uncle Mike came over with pizza and pills hidden in vitamin bottles, Tyler distracted Jake with soccer in the backyard. You see, Uncle Mike was Dad's dealer, but Jake thought he was the coolest. He taught Jake trick shots and always brought presents. And I guess Dad's addiction got pretty bad, because it was around this time that things started to disappear. Jake's piggy bank got lighter, so I replaced the money. And since I had a 4.2 GPA to maintain, I couldn't get a job. So instead, Tyler drove me to this sleazy plasma center near us twice a week. They didn't even care that I wasn't 18, and they gave me $600 a month. When my appendix burst, Tyler was the one to drive me to the hospital. After the surgery, they offered me pain meds. I was going to say yes, but I couldn't stop thinking about the promise me and Tyler had made. No substances. So I refused. And as soon as Tyler drove me home, my dad cornered me. I thought he was going to ask if I was okay, or even offer me a glass of water. But no. "Where are your pain meds?" was the first thing he asked. "They didn't offer any," I lied. My dad sighed and walked away. Tyler was the only one to comfort me. Over the next few weeks, he came over almost every day with flowers and Hershey's Kisses, and I wanted to appreciate them, but I couldn't, because I noticed his bruises were getting worse, and the light in his eyes was dying more and more. But I was seeing him so much that Jake started calling him his big brother, so my dad started to let him sleep over every night, lol. And the one night he went home, his parents had just come back from a 3-day bender. Tyler showed up at our door the next day. What I saw disgusted me to my core. His lip was split and there was blood all over his shirt. Jake was asleep upstairs and Dad was somewhere. Tyler went straight for Dad's stash. I watched him grab a handful of pills. "What the F are you doing?" I asked while walking towards him, but he just looked at me with these dead eyes. "I can't do this anymore," he said. "Just this once, just to make it stop hurting." I should have stopped him, but I didn't. Instead, I walked over to the drawer and took one too. Just one, we promised each other. In just minutes, a gray cloud was lifted from my eyes. For the first time since I was Jake's age, everything felt okay. I was laughing at nothing when I turned to Tyler, expecting him to laugh with me, but that's when I saw it. His lips were turning blue and his eyes were rolling backward. 20 minutes later, he was on my kitchen floor and I was doing CPR while trying to explain to the 911 operator what happened. It was 11:47 p.m. when the paramedics pronounced him dead. He had taken a handful. Uncle Mike somehow got there before the cops and looked at Tyler's body like it was nothing. "Shame about your boyfriend," he said. "Some kids just can't handle the pressure." Rage boiled my blood. Not only did he destroy my family, but now he was a color, and I hate colors. The cops showed up 20 minutes later, asking questions I couldn't answer without exposing everything. Uncle Mike stood there the whole time, his hand on my shoulder like he was comforting me, but his fingers dug in whenever I started to say too much. Dad finally stumbled downstairs, took one look at the scene, and his face went white, not because Tyler was dead, because he saw his stash scattered on the counter where Tyler had grabbed it. Jake's footsteps creaked on the stairs. I bolted up, blocking his view of the kitchen. "Hey buddy, let's go back to bed," I said, scooping him up. He rubbed his eyes, confused. "Where's Tyler?" I heard sirens. "Tyler had to go home," I whispered, carrying him back upstairs. My hands shook as I tucked him in. "He'll visit another time." When I came back down, they were loading Tyler's body into the ambulance. No sirens this time, no rush. Uncle Mike was talking to the lead officer, slipping something into his hand. The cop nodded and suddenly wasn't interested in the pills anymore. "Looks like an accidental OD," the officer announced. Tragic when kids get mixed up with substances. I wanted to scream that Uncle Mike was the supplier, that he'd been poisoning our neighborhood for years, but Dad's warning look stopped me. After everyone left, he grabbed my arms hard enough to bruise. "You keep your mouth shut about where those pills came from," he hissed. "You understand me? We don't need that kind of trouble." I nodded, but inside something had snapped. Tyler was gone because of Uncle Mike's substances, because I didn't stop him, because I took one too. The next 3 days blurred together. I went through the motions of grief while my mind raced with plans. Dad disappeared to the rehab center for his scheduled week, probably to avoid questions. I told Jake that Tyler was visiting his sick grandma far away. Each lie felt like swallowing glass. On the second day, I climbed into the attic looking for Tyler's hoodie he'd left here. Instead, I found packages wrapped in birthday paper tucked behind the insulation. My hands trembled as I carefully opened one corner. Pills, hundreds of them. Uncle Mike had been using our house as a storage spot while Dad was at rehab. Tyler's old camera sat on my dresser, the one he used for his photography class. I grabbed it and started documenting everything. The packages, the pills, dates on the wrapping paper. My hands moved on autopilot while my brain screamed. Jake found me crying in Tyler's hoodie that night. "When's Tyler coming back?" he asked, crawling into my lap. "Soon, baby. Real soon." Another lie that burned my throat. Day 3, I followed Uncle Mike. I told Jake we were playing spy games and he giggled in the backseat as I tailed Uncle Mike's car to 3 different houses. Each stop was the same. Nice neighborhoods, single parents, kids playing in the yards. He'd go in with pizza boxes, come out empty-handed. I photographed every address, every license plate. At the 3rd house, I watched a mom answer the door looking strung out while her toddler clung to her leg, just like Dad, just like us. Uncle Mike specifically targeted vulnerable families with kids because desperation made them easy to control. Dad came home early from his shift at the warehouse that evening, sweating and pacing. "Mike needs us to hold more product," he said, not even looking at me. "Someone's been asking questions at the rehab. Thinks there's a connection between the deaths there." Deaths, plural. Tyler wasn't the only one. "Of course, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "Whatever Uncle Mike needs." That night, I moved every package from our attic to the abandoned house next door. The Johnsons had been foreclosed on months ago, window, and the back window still didn't lock properly. I stacked everything in their attic, took photos of the new location, then went home and waited. Uncle Mike showed up the next afternoon. I heard him in the attic, then his footsteps pounding down the stairs. "Where is it?" he roared at Dad. "Where's my product?" Dad's eyes went wide with panic. "It was all there last week, I swear. Nobody goes up there except—" His gaze snapped to me. "She must have taken it," Dad said quickly. "She's been acting strange since the boyfriend died." Uncle Mike turned to me, his face dark. "That true? You take something that wasn't yours?" I let my eyes fill with tears. "I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't been in the attic since." I paused, pretending to think. "Wait, Tyler was up there last week. He said he was looking for Christmas decorations for Jake, but maybe—" Uncle Mike's expression shifted. "The dead kid took my stash? He was really messed up about his parents." I continued. "Maybe he was planning to sell it? To run away? He kept talking about getting enough money to leave town." The lie felt wrong using Tyler's memory, but I needed Uncle Mike to believe someone else was responsible. He studied me for a long moment, then turned back to Dad. "This is your fault," he snarled. "You vouched for that kid, said he was trustworthy." They argued in the kitchen while I sat with Jake, pretending to watch cartoons. Through the heating vent, their voices carried clearly. Uncle Mike was convinced I knew something. Dad insisted I was just a stupid kid who cared more about grades than anything else. "She's a liability," Uncle Mike said finally. "If she knows about the operation, she doesn't know anything," Dad interrupted. "And even if she did, who'd believe her? Teenage girl, grieving her boyfriend, Dad's an addict. Cops would think she's having a breakdown. Maybe. But I'm not taking chances. Tomorrow, my nephew Brandon gets out of county. He'll keep an eye on things here. Make sure nobody talks to anyone about anything." My blood ran cold. Brandon Mitchell. He'd been expelled from my school for bringing a knife to class and threatening a teacher. Last I heard, he'd been arrested for assault. That night, I packed emergency bags for me and Jake. Changes of clothes, important documents, the cash from my plasma donations. I hid them in the treehouse Tyler had helped us build last summer. If things went bad, we'd need to run fast. Brandon showed up the next morning looking exactly like I remembered. Tall, muscled, with dead eyes that reminded me of a shark. Uncle Mike introduced him as additional security for the family. "Just making sure everyone stays safe," Brandon said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Lot of dangerous people out there." He set up camp in our living room, supposedly watching TV but really watching us. Every time I moved, his eyes followed. When I made Jake lunch, he stood in the doorway. When I took out the trash, he followed me to the curb. Jake, oblivious to the danger, tried to make friends. "You want to see my dinosaur collection?" he asked Brandon. "Sure, kid," Brandon said, ruffling Jake's hair with hands that had probably hurt people. While they were distracted, I uploaded everything from Tyler's camera to his cloud account. Only I knew the password. He'd made it Jake's birthday plus my middle name. The photos were safe even if they found the camera. That's when Jake's innocent chatter destroyed everything. "My sissy takes pictures too," he announced to Brandon. "She was taking pictures of Uncle Mike's car yesterday when we played Spy." Brandon's head snapped toward me. "That so?" "Just for Jake's game," I said quickly. He wanted to play detective. But Brandon was already moving, grabbing my phone from the counter. He scrolled through my photos, his face darkening with each swipe. The pictures were all there. Uncle Mike's car at different houses, license plates, even one where he was clearly visible carrying packages. "Mike," Brandon called. "You need to see this." Uncle Mike took one look at my phone and his expression went cold. "You stupid little girl. You have no idea what you've done." "I was just playing with Jake." "Shut up," he turned to Dad. "Your daughter's been documenting my routes. She knows too much." Dad actually stepped forward. "She's just a kid, Mike. She doesn't understand, which is why she needs to disappear for a while," Uncle Mike said calmly, "until we figure out how to handle this. You can't just take my daughter." Uncle Mike pulled out his phone, showing Dad something on the screen. "Really? Because this shows you dealing to 3 patients at the rehab center. How long you think you'd last in prison? How long before Jake ends up in foster care?" Dad's shoulders slumped in defeat. I felt the walls closing in, but I had to stay calm for Jake. "Can I at least pack some things?" I asked quietly. Uncle Mike nodded to Brandon. "Go with her. Make sure she doesn't try anything stupid." In my room, I grabbed random clothes while my mind raced. Brandon stood in the doorway checking his phone. Through the heating vent, I could hear Uncle Mike and Dad talking. "She uploaded those photos somewhere," Uncle Mike was saying. "We need to find out where before we move her." "This is insane," Dad protested weakly. "She's 17. People will notice she's gone. I've handled this before. The Morrison girl, remember? Told everyone she ran away with some boyfriend. Nobody questioned it. The Morrison girl. Kayla Morrison had disappeared 6 months ago. Everyone thought she'd run off to California." My stomach churned as I realized what had really happened. I had to act fast. While Brandon was distracted by his phone, I texted the school's absence line that Jake was sick and wouldn't be in tomorrow. Then I deleted the message. At least he wouldn't be expected anywhere for a day. "Hurry up!" Brandon barked. I grabbed my backpack and headed downstairs. Jake was coloring at the kitchen table, unaware his whole world was about to shatter. "Hey buddy," I said, kneeling beside him. "Wanna go for a ride? Just you and me?" "Where's Tyler?" he asked for the 100th time. "You said he'd be back soon." "We're going to visit someone who knew Tyler," I lied. "But we have to go right now." Uncle Mike stepped forward. "The boy stays here. He'll scream if I leave without him," I said. "Do you really want the neighbors calling the cops about a screaming kid?" They exchanged looks. Finally, Uncle Mike nodded. "Brandon goes with you." My heart sank, but I kept my face neutral. Of course. I buckled Jake into Tyler's car. I still had the spare keys he'd given me months ago. Brandon climbed into the passenger seat, his bulk making the small car feel claustrophobic. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Just driving around until Jake falls asleep," I said. "He naps better in the car." I drove aimlessly for 20 minutes, my mind spinning through options. The police station was out. I'd spotted Uncle Mike's car there this morning, probably paying off his connections. The school would ask too many questions. CPS would take forever and might send Jake right back to Dad. Then I remembered Mrs. Ark Patterson. She lived 2 streets over from Tyler's old house. She was the only adult who'd ever tried to help him, calling CPS multiple times about his parents. Tyler used to do yard work for her, and she'd always send him home with extra food and worried looks. "Where are we going?" Brandon asked as I turned toward her neighborhood. "Jake wants to see Tyler's house," I said. "He doesn't understand Tyler's not coming back." Brandon seemed to buy it. As we pulled up to Tyler's old house, I saw Mrs. Patterson in her garden next door. She looked up, recognized me, and her face filled with sorrow. "I need to talk to her," I said to Brandon, "about funeral arrangements." He looked annoyed but nodded. "Make it quick." I got Jake out of his car seat and walked to Mrs. Patterson's fence. She met us at the gate, her eyes taking in Brandon's presence in the car. "I'm so sorry about Tyler, dear," she said, but her eyes were sharp, reading the situation. "Mrs. Patterson," I said quietly, "Jake and I need help right now, please." She looked at Jake, then at Brandon, then back at me. Without hesitation, she opened her gate. "Come in, both of you. I just made cookies. We can't can't stay, I started. Nonsense. Her voice was steel wrapped in grandma sweetness. You'll come in right now. Brandon was out of the car, moving toward us. Mrs. Patterson turned to him with a smile that didn't waver. You must be a friend of the family, she said. I'm afraid I need to discuss some sensitive funeral arrangements with Tyler's girlfriend. Privacy would be appreciated. I go where they go, Brandon said flatly. Mrs. Patterson's smile sharpened. Young man, I've buried 2 husbands and a son. When I say I need privacy to discuss funeral arrangements, I mean it. You can wait in the car or on my porch, but you will not intrude on our grief. Something in her tone made even Brandon step back. Maybe it was the way she said it, like a general giving orders. Or maybe he just didn't want to deal with an old lady's tears. 10 minutes, he said, settling on her porch steps where he could watch the door. Inside, Mrs. Patterson moved fast. What's happening? I pulled out Tyler's laptop from my backpack and showed her everything. The photos, the documentation, Uncle Mike's operation. Her face went pale, then furious. I knew it, she whispered. After my grandson died at that rehab center, I started documenting things. Strange visitors, patterns, license plates. I have 3 notebooks full. They're going to make me disappear, I said urgently. Like Kayla Morrison. Uncle Mike has cops on his payroll. I don't know where to go. Mrs. Patterson grabbed her phone. My son Nicholas works for the state police 2 towns over. Different jurisdiction. Clean department. She was already dialing. Nicholas? It's Mom. I need you here right now. Bring backup. Yes, it's about what we discussed. 20 minutes? Make it 10. She hung up and turned to us. We're going to keep you safe, both of you. Brandon won't let us leave, I said. Mrs. Patterson smiled grimly. My late husband was a Marine. Taught me a few things. She pulled something from her kitchen drawer. Pepper spray. If that boy tries to stop us, he'll regret it. She gave Jake cookies and milk, keeping him distracted while I paced. 8 minutes later, Brandon started knocking. Time's up. Mrs. Patterson opened the door. We're not quite finished. Brandon pushed past her, grabbing my arm. We're leaving. Now. Mrs. Patterson moved faster than I'd have thought possible for a 70-year-old. The pepper spray hit Brandon square in the face. He screamed, stumbling backward, crashing into her coffee table. Go, she shouted. Out the back. I grabbed Jake and ran through her back door as a state police cruiser pulled up front, followed by 2 unmarked cars. Brandon was still screaming about his eyes when the officers rushed in. The next few hours blurred together. Mrs. Patterson's son Nicholas turned out to be a detective who'd been investigating the rehab center deaths for months. My evidence was the missing piece they needed. Jake and I were taken to a safe house while they processed everything. I gave them every detail. Uncle Mike's roots, the packages in the abandoned house, the conversation about Kayla Morrison. Mrs. Patterson provided her notebooks. 3 years of careful documentation. The raid happened 2 days later. They hit every location simultaneously. Our house, Uncle Mike's properties, the rehab center, even the police station. I watched the news coverage from the safe house. Jake, asleep beside me, finally told that Tyler had gone to heaven. They arrested Uncle Mike at his legitimate business, a pizza shop that served as a front. Brandon was caught trying to flee the state. Dad was picked up at the warehouse, pills in his work locker. 14 others went down with them, including 3 rehab center employees who'd been keeping patients addicted for profit, and 2 local cops who'd been taking bribes. The trial took months. I testified about everything, even though it meant admitting I'd taken that med with Tyler. The prosecutor said my testimony saved lives. 12 patients at the rehab center were being deliberately kept addicted, their families paying thousands for treatment that was culling them. Uncle Mike got 25 years for running a substance enterprise resulting in multiple deaths. They found Kayla Morrison's body based on my testimony. She'd been buried in the woods behind one of his properties. Her family finally got closure. Brandon got 5 years for assault and intimidation. During his arrest, they found evidence linking him to 3 other missing persons cases. Dad got 8 years but would be eligible for treatment programs after 2. When they sentenced him, he actually looked relieved. I'm sorry, he mouthed to me across the courtroom. Take care of Jake. The prosecutor told me our evidence prevented at least a dozen deaths. The rehab center was shut down, its employees facing criminal charges. The state implemented new oversight regulations. Tyler's death meant something. Mrs. Patterson became our official foster mom. Turns out she'd been approved years ago after her grandson died, hoping to help kids affected by substances. She helped us sell Dad's house, putting the money in trust for therapy and college. 6 months later, I was back in school. Jake was in therapy but adjusting. He still asked about Tyler sometimes, but the pain was gentler now. I started a support group for teens with addicted parents. 12 kids showed up to the first meeting. By the end of the year, we had 30. On the anniversary of Tyler's death, Jake and I planted a tree in Mrs. Patterson's backyard. He'd picked out a small oak, saying it would grow big and strong like Tyler would have wanted. As we patted dirt around its roots, Jake placed a plastic dinosaur at the base. So Tyler can still play with us, he explained solemnly. I thought about Uncle Mike in prison, about Dad and his treatment program, about all the families torn apart by greed and addiction. But mostly I thought about Tyler, and how he'd want us to build something better from the ashes. He'd love that, buddy, I said, pulling Jake close. Mrs. Patterson watched from the porch, her notebooks retired now that the danger had passed. She'd fought her own war against the darkness that took her grandson. Now she was helping us heal from ours. The tree would grow tall in her backyard, roots deep and branches wide. And maybe that was the best revenge. Not violence or hatred, but choosing to nurture life in the very place where death had tried to win. Tyler would have understood that. He'd have been proud. The tree was just a sapling when everything started falling apart again. 3 weeks after we planted it, I noticed a familiar car parked across from Mrs. Patterson's house. Not Uncle Mike's. He was locked up tight. This was a hit-up sedan with tinted windows that stayed there for hours. Mrs. Patterson noticed it too. Probably nothing, she said, but I caught her peeking through the curtains more often. Jake had started first grade at the elementary school 2 blocks away. Every morning, Mrs. Patterson and I walked him there together. She said it was for the exercise, but I knew better. We were both still jumpy. The support group at school grew faster than I expected. Kids I'd never talked to before started showing up. There was Kathy, whose mom had been hooked on painkillers since a car accident. Nicholas, whose older brother dealt to pay for their dad's habit. They all had the same hollow look I recognized from my own mirror. My dad keeps asking when I'm visiting, I told the group one afternoon. He writes these letters about how he's getting clean, how he's sorry. Mine does that too, Kathy said. Then he gets out and it starts all over again. I wanted to believe Dad would be different, but I'd learned that wanting something didn't make it true. The sedan was there again when we got home. This time, I memorized the license plate. Mrs. Patterson pretended not to notice me writing it down. That night, Jake had nightmares about Tyler again. He'd been doing better, but sometimes he'd wake up crying, asking why Tyler left without saying goodbye. I held him until he fell back asleep, wondering if I'd ever stop feeling guilty about the lies I'd told him. The next morning, the sedan followed us to Jake's school. I gripped his his hand tighter, my heart racing. Mrs. Patterson walked closer to us, her purse clutched like a weapon. "Don't look back," she murmured. "Just keep walking normally." We dropped Jake off and watched until he was safely inside. The sedan had parked down the street. On the walk home, it crept along behind us. "Should we call Nicholas?" I asked. "Not yet," Mrs. Patterson said. "Let's see what they want first." But I already knew. Uncle Mike might be in prison, but he'd had a whole network. 14 people went down in that raid, but there were always more. People who'd lost money, lost product, lost their connections because of what I'd done. The letters started the next day. No return address, no signature. Just photos slipped under the door. Jake at school, me at the support group, Mrs. Patterson at the grocery store. The message was clear. We're watching. I wanted to run to Nicholas immediately, but Mrs. Patterson stopped me. "They're trying to scare us," she said. "If they wanted to hurt us, they would have already." "Then what do they want?" She looked at the photos spread on her kitchen table. "Same thing they always want. Money, or silence, or both." I thought about all those packages I'd moved to the Johnsons' abandoned house. The police had found them, of course. But what if there had been more? What if Uncle Mike had other stash houses, other hiding spots only a few people knew about? The phone rang that night after Jake was asleep. Mrs. Patterson answered, listened, then handed it to me. "Hello, sweetheart." The voice was unfamiliar, gravelly. "You caused us some problems." "Who is this?" "Someone who lost a lot of money thanks to your little photography project. But I'm a reasonable man. I think we can work something out." My hand shook. Mrs. Patterson moved closer, trying to hear. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. He laughed. "Sure you don't. Here's the thing. Mike had properties the cops didn't find, places with product worth a lot of money. You're going to help us recover it. I don't know about any other properties. Your dad does. And he's been real chatty in prison, trying to make deals, reduce his sentence. He mentioned you were quite the little detective, figured out all sorts of hiding spots." My stomach dropped. Dad was still trying to play angles, even from prison. "I'm giving you a week," the man continued. "Find Mike's other stash houses. We know there are at least 3 more. You bring us the locations, we disappear. You don't, well, that support group of yours meets Thursdays, right? Lot of vulnerable kids there." The line went dead. Mrs. Patterson was already reaching for her phone, but I stopped her. "Wait, if we call the police now, they'll just go underground. Come back later when we're not expecting it. We can't handle this alone," she said. "We won't. But first, I need to think." That night, I went through everything I remembered about Uncle Mike's operation, the birthday paper wrapping, the pizza boxes, the way he always visited certain houses on specific days. There had to be a pattern. I pulled out Tyler's laptop and started mapping what I knew. 3 houses I'd photographed. Our house, the rehab center. I added dates, times, anything I could remember. Mrs. Patterson helped, adding details from her notebooks. "Here," she said, pointing to a cluster of addresses. "These are all foreclosed homes, empty for months, just like the Johnsons' house where I'd hidden the packages." It made sense. Uncle Mike would use abandoned properties. No questions, no witnesses. Over the next 2 days, I drove past 12 foreclosed houses in our area. Mrs. Patterson came with me, Jake safely at school. We didn't stop, didn't take pictures, just observed. 3 of them had the same tells. Fresh tire tracks in overgrown driveways, windows that looked too clean for abandoned buildings, new padlocks on old doors. "We should tell Nicholas now," Mrs. Patterson said. "Not yet. We need proof, and we need to know who's behind this." The sedan kept following us. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't, but I always felt watched. Jake started asking why we took different routes to school every day. I told him we were exploring the neighborhood, another lie that tasted bitter. On Thursday, I went to the support group meeting early. I checked every corner, every shadow. The other kids filed in, carrying their pain like backpacks full of stones. "I want to talk about fear today," I said once everyone was seated. "About how it controls us even after the danger is gone." Kathy raised her hand. "My mom's been clean for 2 months, but I still hide my money. Still check her eyes every morning." "That's normal," I said. "Trust takes time to rebuild." Nicholas nodded. "I installed a lock on my bedroom door. My brother's in jail, but I still can't sleep without it locked." We talked for an hour about healthy boundaries, about protecting ourselves without shutting everyone out. The whole time I wondered if I was putting them all in danger just by being there. After the meeting, I found a note on my car windshield. 3 days left. Stop stalling. That night, I made a decision. I called the number they'd called from. Mrs. Patterson had written it down from caller ID. "I found 2 of the houses," I said when the gravelly voice answered, "but I need more time for the 3rd. You have 3 days. I need a week, and I need to know my brother stays safe." There was a pause. "You're not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you. The cops are still watching everything connected to Uncle Mike. You make one wrong move, they'll be all over you. You need me to do this quietly." Another pause. 5 days. "And if you're lying about finding those houses, I'm not." I hung up before he could threaten Jake again. Mrs. Patterson was furious. "You can't negotiate with these people. They're dangerous." So was Uncle Mike. So was Brandon. "I've dealt with dangerous before. This is different. You don't even know who they are." She was right, but I had an idea about that too. The next morning, I visited Dad in prison. I hadn't been there since the trial. He looked older, grayer, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. "Sweetheart," he said through the glass. "I've been hoping you'd come. I'm not here for a reunion, Dad." His face fell. I know I don't deserve." "How's Jake?" "He's safe, no thanks to you." Dad flinched. "I'm trying to make things right. I've been talking to the prosecutors, giving them information." "About Uncle Mike's other properties?" He went still. "How did you know about that?" "Because someone's threatening us, Dad. Someone who wants those locations. Someone you've been talking to." "I haven't told anyone anything. Just the prosecutors." I swear. I studied his face. He looked genuinely confused, but I'd learned not to trust his expressions. "Think, Dad. Who else knows about those properties? Who would come after us?" He rubbed his face. "Mike had partners, people above him in the supply chain, but they're all supposed to be locked up or gone." "Supposed to be?" "There was this guy, Kat. Real name's Katharine or something. He supplied Mike. Never got caught in the raid because Mike never gave him up. Professional courtesy or whatever." My blood ran cold. "And he knows about the other stash houses?" "Mike mentioned them once when Kat was pushing for more storage space. Said he had backup locations if needed." Dad leaned forward. "If Kat's out there, if he's threatening you and Jake, we'll handle it," I said, standing up. "Wait, let me help. I can call the prosecutor. Tell them, you've helped enough, Dad." I left him there, his pleas following me out. Back at Mrs. Patterson's, I researched everything I could find about Katharine. There wasn't much. A few old arrest records for minor stuff, nothing recent. But one detail stood out. He owned a pizza shop 2 towns over, just like Uncle Mike's front business. "We need to give them something," I told Mrs. Patterson, "but not what they want." I spent the next day preparing. I mapped out the 2 foreclosed houses I'd identified, took photos from a distance, documented everything. But I also prepared something else. Evidence of Kat's connection to Uncle Mike, details about the threatening calls, the sedan's license license plate. Nicholas came for Sunday dinner, like he did every week. Mrs. Patterson cooked pot roast while Jake showed him his dinosaur collection. I waited until Jake was distracted to pull Nicholas aside. I need to tell you something, I said, but you have to promise to wait until I say it's time to act. His expression grew serious. What's going on? I told him everything. The calls, the threats, what I'd learned about Kat. He wanted to act immediately, but I stopped him. They're watching us. If police suddenly show up, they'll know I talked. They'll disappear and come back when we're not ready. So what's your plan? Give them what they want. Let them get comfortable. Then you move in. He didn't like it, but he agreed to wait. We worked out the details. I'd give them the locations. They'd go to retrieve whatever was hidden there, and Nicholas would have teams ready at each spot. 2 days before the deadline, the gravelly voice called again. Time's running out, he said. I have the locations, all 3, but I want something in return. You're not in a position. I want you to leave us alone, permanently. No more following, no more threats. You get your stuff and disappear. A pause. Fine. Where are the houses? I'll text them to you tomorrow night. After that, we're done. You better not be playing games, little girl. I'm not. I just want my brother safe. The next day crawled by. Jake could sense something was wrong. He kept asking if I was okay, if Mrs. Patterson was okay. We told him we were just tired. Another lie, but a necessary one. That evening, I sent the text with the 3 addresses, the 2 real ones, and a 3rd abandoned property I'd scouted. Nicholas had confirmed all 3 were being watched by state police. Then we waited. At 11 p.m., Nicholas called. They took the bait. 3 teams hit the houses simultaneously. We got them all, including your friend Kat. Relief flooded through me. Did they find anything? Enough product to put them away for a long time. Plus weapons, cash, and documents linking them to Mike's operation. Mrs. Patterson hugged me tight. It's over, she whispered. But I knew better. It was never really over. There would always be another Uncle Mike, another Kat, another threat. The best we could do was stay vigilant and protect each other. The next morning, I walked Jake to school without looking over my shoulder for the first time in weeks. The sedan was gone. The weight on my chest had lifted. Can we visit Tyler's tree after school? Jake asked. Of course, buddy. That afternoon, we stood in Mrs. Patterson's backyard, watching Jake water the little oak tree. It had grown a few inches, its leaves reaching toward the sun. Jake placed a new dinosaur at its base, a T-Rex this time. For protection, he explained. Mrs. Patterson joined us, her hand on my shoulder. You did good, she said quietly. I did what I had to. That's what Tyler would have done. Protected the people he loved. I thought about Tyler, about the promises we'd made on my roof. We'd sworn we wouldn't end up like our parents, wouldn't let the darkness win. In a way, we'd kept that promise. He'd died trying to escape the pain, but his death had exposed the poison in our community, and I'd fought to make sure that poison couldn't spread. The support group met again that Thursday. 2 new kids showed up, referred by the school counselor. I welcomed them, remembering my own first meeting, how scared I'd been to admit my dad was an addict. The hardest part isn't what they do, I told the group. It's what we do to survive it. The lies we tell, the secrets we keep. But here, you don't have to pretend. Here, we understand. Kathy raised her hand. My mom relapsed last week. I found her pills and flushed them. She screamed at me, said I was ruining her life. You protected yourself, I said. That's not wrong. Then why do I feel so guilty? Because love and survival don't always align. Because we want to save them. But sometimes we can only save ourselves. Nicholas nodded. My brother's getting out next month. I'm scared he'll come to our house. What's your safety plan? I asked. We spent the rest of the meeting discussing boundaries, escape routes, trusted adults to call, practical things that no teenager should have to know, but that we all needed to survive. After the meeting, I found another note on my car. My heart stopped until I read it. Thank you for saving my daughter. A grateful parent. It was from the mother of one of the kids in our group. She'd been too ashamed to come herself, but wanted me to know the group was helping. That night, I sat in Tyler's car. Mrs. Patterson had helped me officially transfer the title. I still felt him there sometimes. In the worn steering wheel, the faded air freshener, the playlist stuck on repeat. But it wasn't painful anymore. It was like carrying a piece of him forward. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. I heard what happened with Kat. I'm sorry I put you in danger again. I'm getting help. Real help this time. I love you both. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I'd be ready to believe him. Maybe someday Jake could have his father back. But not today. Mrs. Patterson was making hot chocolate when I got home. Jake was already in his pajamas, building a blanket fort in the living room. Can we sleep in the fort tonight? He asked. Sure, buddy. We crowded into the fort with our hot chocolate and flashlights. Jake told stories about dinosaurs who protected their families, who were brave and strong and never let the bad dinosaurs win. Mrs. Patterson and I exchanged smiles over his head. I miss Tyler, Jake said suddenly, but I'm glad we have Mrs. Patterson, and I'm glad you're my sister. I'm glad you're my brother, I said, pulling him close. Will Dad come back? I chose my words carefully. Maybe someday, when he's better, when it's safe. Okay, he yawned. Will you tell me a story? I told him about a tree that grew tall and strong, that sheltered all the creatures of the forest. About how even when storms came, the tree's roots held firm. About how new trees grew around it, creating a whole forest of protection. Jake fell asleep halfway through. Mrs. Patterson tucked an extra blanket around him. You're doing so well with him, she whispered. I had a good teacher, I said, thinking of Tyler, of how he'd shown me that love could be action, not just words. That protecting someone sometimes meant making hard choices. The next few weeks passed quietly. The trial for Kat and his crew moved forward. I testified again, but this time I wasn't scared. I'd faced down Uncle Mike, Brandon, and now Kat. Each time, I'd gotten stronger. The support group grew to 20 kids. The school gave us a bigger room and even assigned a counselor to help facilitate. I still led the meetings, but now I had backup. One Thursday, a familiar face appeared in the doorway. Catherine. Not Kathy from our group, but another Catherine whose brother had just been arrested for dealing. Is this the group for... She trailed off, unable to say the words. For kids dealing with family addiction? Yes, come in. You're safe here. She sat in the circle, tears already forming. I don't know what to do. My parents want to bail him out, but I know he'll just start again. You can't control what your parents do, I said gently, but you can control how you respond. You can set boundaries. You can protect yourself. How? I thought about everything I'd learned, about lies and truth, about love and survival, about choosing to build something better from the ashes. One day at a time, I said, with help, with people who understand. You don't have to do this alone. After the meeting, I drove to the cemetery where Tyler was buried. I hadn't been there since the funeral. It had felt too final, too real, but now I needed to see him, to tell him what had happened. His headstone was simple. Tyler Matthews, beloved son, forever young. I sat on the grass beside it, pulling my knees to my chest. Hey, I said quietly. I know it's been a while. I'm sorry about that. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment I could almost hear his laugh. Jake asks about you all the time. He's doing okay though. We both are. Mrs. Patterson takes good good care of us. I picked at the grass. Dad's still in prison. Uncle Mike too. And now Kat. We stopped them, Tyler. We made them pay for what they did. A bird landed on his headstone, chirping once before flying away. I started a support group. Can you believe that? Me, helping other kids. You always said I was stronger than I knew. My voice cracked. I wish you could have been strong enough too. I wish I could have saved you. But I was learning that some people couldn't be saved. They could only be loved and mourned and remembered. I'm keeping my promise, I whispered. I'm not ending up like them. Neither is Jake. We're building something better. I think you'd be proud. I left a small dinosaur on his grave, one of Jake's, a little Brachiosaurus. From Jake, I explained. So you don't get lonely. The drive home was quiet, but not empty. I felt Tyler there, in the memories, in the strength I'd found, in the life I was building from the ruins of our old one. Mrs. Patterson was gardening when I got back, Jake helping her plant new flowers around Tyler's tree. It had survived its first winter, branches bare but roots deep. It'll bloom in spring, Mrs. Patterson said, noticing my gaze. Stronger for having weathered the cold. I knew she wasn't just talking about the tree. That night, I wrote in the journal my therapist had suggested. Not about the pain or the fear or the anger, though those still existed. I wrote about hope, about Jake's laughter, about Mrs. Patterson's steady presence, about the kids in my support group finding their voices. I wrote about Tyler, not as he died, but as he lived. His smile, his protective nature, the way he'd made Jake feel safe, the promises we'd made under the stars. And I wrote about the future, college applications I was starting, the social work degree I wanted to pursue, the treatment center I dreamed of opening one day, one that actually helped people instead of keeping them sick for profit. One day at a time, I wrote, one choice at a time, building something better from the ashes. My phone buzzed, a text from one of the kids in the support group. Thank you for today. For the first time in months, I don't feel alone. I smiled, remembering my own isolation before finding others who understood. You're never alone, I texted back. We're all in this together. And we were. A bunch of broken kids, picking up each other's pieces, refusing to let the darkness win. Tyler would have loved that. He would have been right there with us, probably making everyone laugh, definitely making everyone feel protected. I closed the journal and checked on Jake one more time. He was sleeping peacefully, dinosaurs standing guard around his bed. No more nightmares, at least not tonight. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Dad would keep writing letters. The kids in my group would face setbacks. Jake would ask hard questions I didn't have perfect answers for. But tonight, we were safe. We were together. We were building something better. And that was enough. The spring flowers were starting to bloom around Tyler's tree when I noticed the first crack in our new normal. I was sorting through college mail at the kitchen table while Jake practiced writing his name. Mrs. Patterson hummed while cooking dinner, the smell of her famous meatloaf filling the house. Everything felt peaceful until I opened a letter from the State Victims Compensation Fund. What's that? Jake asked, always curious. Just paperwork, buddy. I tucked it away before he could see Tyler's name on the form. The fund would cover therapy costs and some living expenses, but seeing it all laid out in black and white made everything real again. Tyler was gone. Dad was in prison. Our old life was completely erased. Mrs. Patterson must have noticed my expression because she squeezed my shoulder as she passed. Nicholas is coming for dinner, she said. He mentioned something about the Morrison case. My stomach tightened. Kayla Morrison's family had been at every court hearing, their grief a mirror of what I felt. Finding her body had given them closure, but it had also opened new wounds. Nicholas arrived right as we were setting the table. He ruffled Jake's hair and complimented Mrs. Patterson's cooking, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. There's been a development, he said once Jake was distracted with his dinosaurs. Kat's lawyer is trying to make a deal. He's offering information about other missing persons in exchange for reduced charges. Other victims? My voice came out smaller than intended. 3 more families might get answers, but the prosecutor needs your testimony again. About what Uncle Mike said that night, about the Morrison girl. I nodded, even though the thought of another trial made me exhausted. When? Next week. I know it's a lot to ask. I'll do it. I looked at Jake, carefully arranging his dinosaurs in battle formation. Those families deserve to know. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. The prosecutor walked me through my testimony again, each detail dragging me back to that horrible night. Jake noticed I was distracted and started acting out at school. He pushed another kid at recess, his teacher told me when I picked him up. Said the boy was being mean about not having parents. I knelt beside Jake in the hallway. What happened, buddy? He said I was weird because I live with an old lady and my sister. Jake's eyes filled with tears. He said Tyler probably left because he didn't want to be my brother anymore. Rage flashed through me, but I kept my voice calm. That's not true. Tyler loved you so much. And Mrs. Patterson isn't just some old lady. She's our family now. But why did everyone leave? His voice broke. First Tyler, then Dad. What if you leave too? I pulled him close, feeling his small body shake with sobs. I'm never leaving you. Ever. You're stuck with me forever. Okay? He nodded against my shoulder, and I carried him to the car even though he was getting too big for it. Mrs. Patterson was weeding the garden when we got home, and she took one look at us before opening her arms. Come here, both of you, she said, and we collapsed into her hug. That night, I heard Jake talking to his dinosaurs. The T-Rex protects everyone, he whispered. Even when the bad dinosaurs come, he keeps his family safe. I made a decision. The next morning, I called the prosecutor. I'll testify, but I need something in return. Jake needs to see a child therapist. A good one. Can the victims fund cover that? I'll make it happen, she promised. The day of the hearing, Mrs. Patterson stayed home with Jake while Nicholas drove me to court. Kat sat at the defense table, looking smaller than I remembered. His expensive suit couldn't hide what he really was. Just another predator who'd fed on desperate people's pain. I testified for 2 hours. Every detail about that night. About Uncle Mike's casual mention of handling the Morrison girl. About Brandon's threats. About the pattern of targeting vulnerable families. The 3 families in the gallery hung on every word, hope and dread warring on their faces. During a break, Mrs. Morrison approached me in the hallway. Thank you, she said simply, for not letting them forget about her. I'm sorry I couldn't do more sooner, I said. She shook her head. You were a child trying to survive. You did what you could when you could. That's all anyone can ask. When court resumed, Kat's lawyer made his plea. Information about 3 missing persons in exchange for reducing his sentence from 25 years to 15. The prosecutor looked at the families, then at me. The state accepts the deal, she said. Kat gave up the locations that afternoon. By evening, 3 more families had answers. Not the answers they wanted, but answers nonetheless. I got home to find Jake and Mrs. Patterson planting new flowers around Tyler's tree. The oak had grown another foot, its branches spreading wide. We're making it pretty for summer, Jake announced. Mrs. Patterson says Tyler would like purple flowers. He would, I agreed, kneeling to help. As we worked, I noticed Jake kept glancing at me, like he was checking I was still there. The therapist appointment appointment couldn't come soon enough. That Thursday, the support group was subdued. News about the bodies had spread through school, and everyone was processing it differently. My mom asked if I knew any of them. Kathy said, like that matters. Like it's not awful either way. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, I said. This stuff, it's heavy. It affects all of us, even indirectly. Nicholas raised his hand. My brother called from jail, first time in months, said he heard about the bodies and wanted to make sure I was okay. I didn't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I told him. You can choose whether to engage or not. Your safety comes first. After the meeting, I found Catherine, the newer one, waiting by my car. Can I ask you something? Sure. How do you do it? Keep helping people when you're still hurting too? I thought about it. Because the helping helps me too. Because Tyler would want me to. Because if we don't look out for each other, who will? She nodded slowly. My brother's bail hearing is tomorrow. My parents want me to speak on his behalf. What do you want? I want him to get help. Real help. But I don't think jail is where he'll find it. Then say that. Speak your truth, whatever it is. You don't owe anyone a performance. The next morning, Jake had his first therapy appointment. Dr. Chen was young, with a warm smile and an office full of toys. Jake gravitated toward a dollhouse in the corner. Can I play while we talk? He asked. Of course, Dr. Chen said. That's what it's here for. I waited outside, listening to the murmur of voices. After an hour, Jake emerged looking lighter somehow. She's nice, he told me. She said it's okay to be sad sometimes. It is, I agreed. And she said Tyler didn't leave because of me. He left because he was sick in his feelings. My throat tightened. That's right, buddy. That weekend we visited Dad. I hadn't planned to, but Jake had been asking, and Dr. Chen thought it might help. Mrs. Patterson drove us, her presence a steady comfort. Dad looked better, cleaner. His hands shook less when he reached for the phone. Jake, he breathed. You've gotten so big. I'm in first grade now, Jake announced. I can read some words. They talked for 20 minutes about school, about dinosaurs, about nothing important, and everything that mattered. I watched Dad's face crumble and rebuild itself with every word. I'm sorry, he said, finally looking at me. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I know, I said. And for the first time, I meant it. On the drive home, Jake was quiet. Then, will Dad come home someday? Maybe, I said. When he's better, when it's safe. Okay. He looked out the window. I'm glad we have Mrs. Patterson, though. Me too, buddy. The next week brought more changes. The support group officially became a school-sanctioned club, which meant funding for snacks and materials. 3 new kids joined, referred by counselors who'd heard we were actually helping. I was preparing for Thursday's meeting when my phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Tyler Matthews' girlfriend? The voice was female. Nervous. Yes? I was in rehab with your dad, at the corrupt one, before it shut down. I wanted to thank you. Your testimony saved my life. They were keeping me sick and I didn't even know it. I sank into a chair. I'm glad you're okay now. I'm 6 months clean, real clean, going to meetings, got a sponsor. I needed you to know that what you did mattered. After she hung up, I sat there shaking. Tyler's death had started a chain reaction I never could have predicted. Uncle Mike was serving 25 years. Kat got 15 with his deal. Brandon got 5. 14 others got various sentences. The rehab center was closed, its directors facing criminal charges. 3 cops lost their badges and went to prison. 7 families got closure about their missing loved ones. Dozens of patients got actual treatment instead of exploitation, all because Tyler took those pills.